it's come through okay.
Let me know if my voice is breaking up or something. Sometimes the connection, not working out well.
Yeah, no, that's all good. I think we're live now in the group, so we're
Okay,
all
great.
good to go. So, hi to everyone who watches us today. Thanks for joining in. Just want to introduce you to Clarissa Goenawan. Clarissa is an Indonesian born Singaporean writer. Her debut novel was Rainbirds, which won the 2015 Bath Novel Award and was shortlisted for 3 further prizes. Her short stories have won several awards and have been published in various literature magazines and anthologies. So, her latest book, which is her second novel, The Perfect World of Mawaka Samidi,
Wait,
um, that's her. This is her second book out. Thanks so much for joining us, Clarissa. Just want to let everyone know who's watching as well that if you ask a question during the Facebook Live, thanks to Scribe, you'll have a chance to win a copy of Clarissa's book. So, Clarissa, would you like to maybe tell us a little bit more about your book?
yeah, first of all, thanks for having me here. It's always fun to meet with readers. I mean, right now it's a pandemic, so we can't really go for
Mm,
events, but I guess this is the best that we can do right now, and I'm always excited to go for an online event. This is like the closest we can go to the readers right now and still be safe at the same time. Yeah, my name is Clarissa. So, The Perfect Word of Miwago Sumida is my second novel. It's a literary mystery set in Japan. So basically, the story is about this young girl who committed suicide and how the main gist of the book is why did she did that and how her suicide is actually affecting the people around her. So it's not just about her, but how it's affecting others too, and how they deal with that and move on from that.
and how did you get the idea of the book?
How did I get? I guess I'm very interested in this idea that often we thought that we know someone's really well, but actually we don't really
Mm,
know that person well. Is sometimes you see someone whose life looks perfectly fine, perfectly well, and then something happened to that person, and then you're thinking, oh, I never know. I thought we are close, but I don't really know that. And
mm,
this is true even for families. Sometimes we thought that we know our sibling well, sometimes we know our best friend well, but actually sometimes there's certain things that we don't really know. So I guess this thing always intrigued me of what people hide beyond something that look perfect
yeah,
on the surface. Yeah.
yeah. And any of the characters, are they like based on anyone or any traits of any of your friends or yourself or
I guess I would say that sort of certain characters actually, in a way, I feel like certain of them have a little bit piece of me or a little bit piece of my
mm,
friend.
mm,
Like for example, in this novel, there are three narrators. I mean, if you ask me, are you writing about yourself, that I can say no, yes, but at the
mm,
same time it's also that I can see a lot of things there, like the characters love books, and that is something I really love, going to the bookstores and finding nice books and vintage book. This kind of thing is something I feel passionate about. And also, the second narrator says this girl that trying to fit in, and I do feel that when I was in high school, I tried to fit in and dress the way that other girls
yeah,
dress, just to get along. And sometimes I kept my opinion to myself and pretend to be agreeing with them just because I want to be included in the groups. And sometimes they say bad things, but I pretend not to notice. I think
mm,
this kind of thing is something that we all can feel related to. Or the third narrator's how she is actually dealing with identity, and so how she sometimes she feel like she wants to go after something, but it's not very easy. And I think this kind of struggle is something that all of us can relate. So in a
yeah,
way, I think each characters have a little bit shades of me, not 100%, but I will say here and there I can see myself
mm,
and my friends doing that.
yeah. And did you have any people read your book and say that, like, come reach out to you and say that parts of it really touched them or that they could really relate to some of your things in your book?
Yeah, so actually, I do have some people say that, oh, they really feel the same struggle as a certain
Mm,
characters. And in fact, since we are talking about, I mean, you're calling from Australia, so I just remember there's this musicians which reached out to me, and he said that he actually feel really connected to the books and how it has been impacted him in a personal level, and he actually wanted to come up with an album inspired by the
Oh,
book.
really?
And
Oh.
yeah, and I mean, to me, actually, to be honest, I wrote my books for myself. It's actually it's my way of processing my thought. I feel very passionate about mental health, and I feel passionate about female voices and diversity, this kind of thing. And yeah, so basically, in a way, I wrote that for myself. But if it's reached other people and they feel connected to it, then I feel really thankful. And I guess that's where the magic happened.
Yeah. And we've got a few people watching now, which is great. Just reminding people watching, if you've got any questions for Clarissa, please type them in comments because you'll have a chance to win a copy of her book thanks to Scribe. Mary has a question. Mary would like to know, how long ago did you start writing, and
Wow.
and do you have a favorite place to write?
Right. So, okay, in terms of writing this book or just the whole writing,
Just your whole writing process, I thought. Yeah. When did you first start to write?
I mean, I wanted to be a writer since I was young, actually. So since I was a kid, I've been writing, but never too seriously. And as I grew up, I realized this is getting more and more impossible to do. You know, I started to do a more realistic jobs in like sales, marketing, and banking. But eventually, I think I came to this time that I feel that I don't really feel passionate about what I'm working as. I mean, I'm doing okay, but I don't really feel like it's very fulfilling. So I decided to take a plug and took a sabbatical to give myself at least 1 year to catch my dreams. So yeah, basically the rest is history. But if you're talking about how long it takes to write the books, my first book, Rainbirds, took me 5 years from the first draft. It was written in 2013 and it was published in 2018. Miwaku Sumida is actually my third book, which I wrote at 2015. So it was published in 2020, so another 5 years. And actually, my third book was, in fact, my second book, which I'm still editing. So it was still 2014 all the way. If it get published next year, that means 2022. That's like 8 years.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get any slower. I mean, it doesn't get any faster.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just it's just not ready, and you just have to keep on doing it. And a favorite place to write, I mean, last time before the pandemic, I love to write in campus. I mean, I live in Singapore. There's a lot of campus and there's a lot of bench. You can just sit down and there's a lot of electricity, plug the electricity there, do your writings, and just blend with the college people. But because right now there is a COVID, so they seal up all the university and all the college. So basically you can't go in unless you have a class, and they are very strict about who can go in. So recently I've been using a co-working place. So and this is a co-working place. Yeah. I mean, no choice because sometimes you can't really write in a cafe anymore right now. There's no dining in. Actually, we are in so-called, they call it soft lock, not really soft lockdown. They call it phase 2 heightened. Basically, there's no dining in, and there's a lot of places that is out of bound, including like Starbucks, this kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I just have to get a co-working place, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to know, do you write your novels in English first?
Yes, actually my mother tongue is Indonesian, but I moved to Singapore when I was 16. So in Singapore we speak English as a first language. So in a way I wouldn't say my English is perfect, but it's a lot better than my Indonesian. Yeah, so I feel more comfortable writing in English, but I mean I still can speak in Indonesian, but if you ask me to write a novel in Indonesian, I'm giving up.
Okay.
I do translation, but from Indonesian to English, not English to Indonesian.
Yeah.
I just feel like if I write Indonesian, sometimes I have the words in English, but I just don't know what's the Indonesian words. I mean, there is a word, but it doesn't have the right feel that I want to achieve, because words is very unique. I mean, even if the same thing, that there's maybe two words that mean the same thing, like scent and flavor, or I mean, it have a very different kind of feel. and sometimes you just have to get the right words that give you the kind of feels that you want to feel. And
Yeah.
I just feel that my Indonesian vocabulary is not there anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mary's wondering if you have any writers that influenced your writing.
Sorry, come again?
Any other authors who
Any
influenced your
authors,
writing?
right?
Mm,
Basically, I love Japanese literature. I think it's no
mm,
secret.
mm,
Yeah. Basically, I read mostly literary fictions, and I read a lot of mystery also. So from literary fiction, I like writers like Banana Yoshimoto's, and then Hiromi Kawakami, Haruki Murakami, and then from the mystery, I like people like Keigo Higashino, and then and Miyuki Miyabe, this kind of thing. So I think most of my influences come from Japanese writers. And I love reading comics, like Japanese
okay,
comics, manga.
yeah.
I read a lot of them. Yeah.
So can you read Japanese or do you read
I
translated?
studied Japanese, but I would say that I can talk like casually. I can make
Mm,
reservations in restaurant. I can order and make reservation at hotel. But if you
mm,
ask me to do a business Japanese, then I'm giving up.
yeah.
And if people, I think usually my Japanese friend, when they talk to me, they will try to talk slower and they use a simple vocabulary,
Mm,
and that is okay. But if it's like my Japanese friend talk to a Japanese friend, then sometimes I'm like, okay, I get this word, I get this word, I get this word, but I don't get the
not
main
all.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say I do study Japanese, but I
Mm,
wouldn't say I'm fluent in it. Just
mm,
basic surviving skill,
mm.
enough for traveling.
So the Japanese authors that you said you enjoy reading, are you reading their books in Japanese or translated?
For
Oh,
novel, I can only read translation. It's so difficult to write
yeah.
to read it in Japanese, especially because I think most people in Singapore they know Chinese, but I don't
Mm,
know Chinese.
mm,
So Japanese have a lot of Chinese characters that is to me doesn't look like anything. It just look like lines. So that is a huge problem to me. But sometimes I will try to read, like if it's children book, I still can read in Japanese, and
mm,
simple manga for children like Yasubato. I mean, they have like furigana, which is basically all the kanji, the Chinese characters, they write it in Japanese characters. That one I still can read it.
mm.
So I would say the simple stuff I try to read in Japanese, but when it comes to adult books, I'm
You're
still not
not,
there
yeah.
yet.
Yeah. Belinda's wondering if you can tell us about what you're working on at the moment.
Right, I'm actually working on my third novel, which is actually my second novel. It's also set in Japan. I mean, all my books are set in Japan. It's also another literary mystery. Um, I think one unique things about my books is that they're actually set in the same universe. So they're not like volume one, two, three. So if you want to read
Mm,
Miwako, you don't need to read my first book, Rainbirds. But
mm,
you will see the characters from Rainbirds make appearance in Miwako, and vice versa. And sometimes you start to learn a new thing because you read another books. So I think that is something that I thought readers will find it interesting, like, oh, this is someone I'm familiar with, or oh, I think I saw this person in a previous
mm,
book.
mm,
But at the same time, I don't really like to read series. I mean, for me, I want a book to be like complete. I mean, I don't want to wait for the next volume to come out and find out what happened. So I don't want it to be a volume, but I want it to be interrelated. So the third book will be in the same universe. It's also set in Japan. It's also there's mystery, and as you saw, there's always secrets. And I think for this one, the span is quite long. It's about this man that actually he took dodgy jobs at some
oh, okay.
organization, and then he tried to save someone, but instead they actually started to hunt him, and then he and the girlfriend has to run away and get separated and things like that. Well, I mean, I believe my editor will come up with a nicer synopsis. I'm really terrible at explaining my own book.
Yeah.
It's so difficult to. How do you make an 88,000 words into like a
Into
succinct
one. Yeah.
paragraphs? That takes a spatial skill.
And and what
Yeah.
about your titles? Like, do you choose your titles yourself or?
Actually, I'm very surprised. My first book was Rainbirds, and then second one, The Perfect Word of Miwako Sunda. I'm pretty sure my editor is going to take it away because it's too long.
Mm,
But I'm surprised that they just let me keep it, and I'm
yeah.
like, okay, I love the title, but I'm not really married to it because I have a lot of friends who told me that their editor told them to change their title, and some of them
Mm,
went to like 10 different title change. So I wasn't expecting a lot, and I feel like this is a bit too long, but surprisingly, they just accepted it. The
mm.
third novel is Water Song, so coming back again to one word. Yeah, so I guess I'm lucky that they just take it.
They kept, yeah, yeah.
I mean, obviously, I love my title and I spend a lot of time like obsessing about it. But
Mm,
sometimes I feel that also the editor they knows best about about the markets, what's working and what's not working.
yeah, yeah. Kelly's wondering, with lockdown and COVID, do you find you've read more?
That's a good question. Actually, it's not just read. I mean, people ask me, "Do you like write more?" Because
Mm,
you can't go anywhere, you can't do anything, kind of thing.
mm,
But this is what I feel. I'm not sure if it's just me. I feel that in the beginning of the lockdown, I feel that I'm actually putting in more works, but not necessarily more output. So
yeah.
I'm actually working a longer hours, but I'm doing very little.
Yeah.
I don't know what's the math behind that. I think I'm just not feeling very inspired most of the time.
Mm,
And I think it comes to the point that I read somewhere on social media, I think Twitter was it. Someone mentioned is that look, we are actually in the pandemic. This is not a normal situation, and you shouldn't be expecting yourself to come up with your normal output. And I think that's kind of switched my thinking that I stopped blaming myself of, oh look, Clarissa, usually you can do this much, and
yeah.
why are you only doing this much? Because this is not normal. This is not the usual situation. And I think a lot of people. I mean, I'm an introvert, so I feel better when I'm alone. I mean, I think when you're a writer, you have to be a certain type of introvert because most
Mm,
of the time you're
mm,
working alone. But and people were saying at first, oh, introvert writer, no problems. You're at home all the time anyway, or you're working alone all the time anyway. But it's different because right now everybody's suddenly going back home, and then the home that used to be like your precious area is suddenly now become a very crowded place, and it's like the introvert in me just need a little bit more space.
yeah.
Yeah, so yes, I feel that I'm actually, in terms of hours, I read more. In terms of hours, I write more. But if you ask me about the output, do I read?
That's
Do I end up reading more page? Do I end
mm.
up writing more page? No, it's not
No, that
happening.
yeah, that's interesting,
Yeah.
yeah. And is there anything you've read lately that you'd like to recommend to us?
I think because of the pandemic, I've been reading mostly like
Mm,
Zen stuff. I especially like this Korean and Japanese Zen stuff. And I feel like I can have more of the peacefulness because there's just so many bad news right now out there. Like we can have more of words that is calming and reassuring us. I mean, if you follow me in social media, I think that recently I shared quite a lot of non-fictions of those books that I feel like calming. And one writer I particularly like is this Korean monk. I think his name is Hainim Sunim. I'm not sure whether I pronounced it properly.
mm,
I think his book is called Things You Can Notice When You Slow Down or something like that. Yeah, I think the book was awesome. I bought the first book and then I bought the second one too. So it's like there's some paragraphs, and then after that there is some smaller meditations, and basically I read it in the morning and before sleep, and I while drinking tea, and I feel that it's actually
mm,
helping to calm me down because every single day there is so many bad news. We see numbers and then more restrictions, and
yeah.
at first in Singapore it looks like it's getting better, and then suddenly we are in another soft lockdown again,
Mm,
and sometimes it feels a bit like a betrayal,
yeah. Mm,
But well, I guess we just have to ride this out. I
yeah.
mean, I was positive that this year is going to be finished when we all get our jab, but doesn't look like it's going to
No,
finish anytime
no.
soon. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And could you tell us a little bit about how hard or easy it was for you to first get that first book published?
Right. I think the main flow is for me. I had to get my agent first, and then after that, I have to get the publisher. So it wasn't easy.
Mm,
Yeah, it wasn't easy at all. I think I got lucky because my book won awards.
Mm.
The Buff Novel Awards is actually for unpublished novelists. So because of the award, I get more attention. So if you know, I mean, all of you, the aspiring writers, you should know how the career works. It's just very difficult and very it can be very tough on you mentally. And yeah, I think a lot of people like requested it, but eventually it's not. I mean, especially back then when I was scoring in 2015, it's we are still not that big on diverse voices, this kind of thing, and it's
Mm.
still something that is really
Mm.
new. Like, oh, look, this is not something that we usually sell. I mean, we don't really know where's the market about this thing. I mean, right now we see more people are like they're open to read about new things. And last time it was like the topic is a bit heavy and this kind of stuff. So it wasn't easy, but I eventually managed to find an agency I feel comfortable with. And after that, of course, I mean, people thought that, oh, okay, after you got an agent, then it's smooth sailing, but not really.
Yeah.
There's another round of rejections from getting the first publishers to say yes. But you know what they say is that at the end of the day you only need 1 yes, but actually it's 2 yes, basically one from your agent and one from your editor. And
Yeah.
then suddenly all the no doesn't matter anymore. But it was very tough. I mean, I think especially for at that time, especially for people like me who is like writing from voices that is not really what was in the market at that time. There are a lot of rejection, and I think one of
Yeah.
the reason I still can persevere is I had a group of friends that even I give up, I feel like they're not giving up on me. And I always
Mm.
tell myself like, look, you spend years writing this novel, doing it the best that you can. You should also do the best that you can to find an agent to it. But I guess I'm still lucky because this is my Rainbird was my first novel, and that's the novel that got me an agent and a publisher. But
Mm.
a lot of my friends got published with their 7 novels, their third novels, their fourth novel. And in
Mm.
fact, it's very, very seldom that debut novelist is with their first novel.
Yeah.
When I get together with friends that is launching book at the same time, and then we start talking about it, they are usually at their third book, fourth book, somebody at the ninth book. And
Mm.
yeah, basically it's like you just love to do this. You just don't give up, I guess. I mean,
Mm.
it's not easy, but it's worth it.
Mm. And did you have anyone who really supported you and encouraged your writing?
I do have a lot of them, well, mostly like internet friends. I mean, my family is not really like the writer type. They don't really get it.
Mm.
It was like hobby to them. It's so yeah. So actually, I think the first how I first met friends is like from writing forums and from Twitter, especially. I mean, now Twitter is getting a little bit fierce, but back then, I mean, a few years back, is a lot of supportive writers there. And then I joined some Facebook groups. They told me, oh, look, there's these binders, and especially there's some groups of women. So it's like
Mm.
they all wanted to get published, and we just encourage each other. We share success story, not so successful story, and
Yeah.
we share like our whatever knowledge we have. Like we share database of agents, and we give tips to each other. And I guess all these friends, some of them I actually managed to see real life, but most of them I never met them, but they have been very very supportive to me,
Mm.
and I don't think I could have done it without them because it's very tough, especially I think for our time zone, maybe Singapore and Australia. If we send our query to agent in US and UK, we will get our rejection first thing in the
Yeah.
morning, and it's so damn annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes you can get more than two.
Yeah.
It's not easy for your mental health. I think you need your cheerleaders, and yeah, I would say
Yeah, to
for
keep
everyone who
supporting.
plan to query, you need your cheerleaders.
Mm. Mm. And is there a big writer community in Singapore?
We do have a writers community in Singapore, but I think in Singapore there are more short story writers and
Okay.
novelists, and we have a lot of poets also. So
Mm.
last time I used to go to these groups that they met like once a month in the library, but then because I have a young kid, so it's a bit tough when I have a babies and you can't really go out. So then I started more to meet up with friends online, which like there is no time zone and you don't really need to go out, so
Yeah.
it's very convenient. Yeah.
Yeah. Kelly's wondering when your next book will be released.
We're hoping that it will finish in summer next year. I
Mm.
don't know where is summer because in Singapore every day is summer. We don't really have a season, but just like how the publishing goes right now, I think people are starting to stretch the date. Like, for example, even for Mimalco, I think the UK publication was delayed because of COVID. It was supposed to be out in about April. I think they delayed because of the COVID. So I would say, I think at this point of time, people are still like looking at the situation. So I mean, we are hoping it will be out next year, but I'm not sure. I think until they print out the pub date, I wouldn't call it a day because sometimes things can get worse, and then we might have another lockdown.
Yeah.
And it's tough for the book. The book will get stuck somewhere.
And do you read your reviews?
That's a good one, right? Usually, I'm not someone who can take review and not feel hurt.
Yeah.
So for Goodreads, I have to confess I only read my 5 and 4-star reviews. I feel like if I'm in a very good mood, I probably try to read the 4-star. If not, I just read the 5-star. I feel like you shouldn't read the 1 to 3-star. I mean, you start to doubt yourself, and I already have a lot of doubt. I don't need extra doubt. I try to read the trade reviews and the reviews online that usually people tag me. So I'm just expecting that if you tag me, then okay, maybe it can be balanced. I'm not expecting you to say all good things. There might be 1 or 2 things that you don't like. That's fair enough. But when you tag me, I don't expect that you're going to say this sucks. I totally don't like it at all. If you don't like it at all, don't tag me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so generally I read when people tag me, and yeah, I mean trade reviews is kind of thing.
And before we finish off, could you tell people how they can keep up to date with what's happening with you, what social media you have?
Oh, okay. So I'm actually active mostly on Twitter and on Instagram. I post random stuff, mostly foods that I like, mostly Japanese food. And also books that I read. I mean, if you are reading the books, I mean, if you see what I'm posting recently, is mainly Zen stuff, self-care stuff, because that's what I'm feeling right now. And also like random things in Singapore, like when I walk or something, I see something nice, I'll take photo. My social media is very random. Yeah, but if you are on Twitter or Instagram, let's stay connected.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks so much for that. And thanks for joining us today. And also thanks to everyone else who joined in and the great questions that people asked. So thank you. And I've got one last question, which I think is a good one I'd like to read out. So Vivi says, what makes you so passionate about Japanese? She said that she saw you were learning to wear kimono in the tea ceremony she saw on your Instagram.
Right, yeah. Actually, I learned tea ceremony, and also I learned the kimono wearing. Yeah. I recently took certification in that. In fact, I guess from young, actually, I started to like anime and manga. I love watching Japanese cartoons on TV, and I also love the comics. So it's something that I really love. And then after that, because I love the comics and the animation, I started to learn the language also in schools. I joined this Japanese club, and then after that, I start to learn about the culture, and I feel like a lot of Japanese culture are very interesting, and even the language, a lot of things are very interesting. And I feel like the more you know about it, the more you can appreciate it. For example, when we get to know someone in Japanese for the first time, we usually say, Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. And I thought that usually people just translate it as nice to meet you. But actually, if you look at the real words, it's not nice to meet you. It's actually more like, I'm going to be troubling you in the future. And I thought that's a very beautiful ways of introducing you to someone, like, oh, please take care of me. I'm going to trouble you in the future. And this one, and another thing that I found really beautiful was before we eat, usually we say "itadakimasu," and I usually just thought that the meaning is, oh, okay, I'm going to eat. But after I learned the language, I realized it's actually a humble version to say that I receive all the efforts and all the kindness and love that you put into these dishes, that you're giving it to me. And I guess this kind of thing is very interesting. And something like tea ceremony, there are many small steps that I didn't know why people do that. And then when my teacher explained, I just thought it's beautiful. Like when you give the cup to the guest, make sure that the beautiful side is the one that facing the guest. And then when you drink it, you actually turn it around so that you don't drink it from the beautiful side. And you drink it from the one without design, so you don't stain it. And after that, you clean it up. But when you return it to the host, you turn it again so that the host can see the beautiful design. And things like before you drink your tea, you tell the people next to you, I'm going to drink first, and then you thank the host surrounding. And I feel that this kind of, we call it like temai. Yeah, it's something like it comes from your hearts, where it's a very good philosophy to learn about life and how we try to consider other people's feeling, and to live in harmony with other people, and basically to consider not just other people but like the season. I mean, tea ceremony and kimono are very seasonal. Like you're supposed to even kimono is like, there is a season, and it's not just for season. There are a lot of season. Like we can't wear the kimono with the sakura motif after like March, April, because we have to wear it early to invoke a spring kind of summer. So all these small details, I love knowing about it. And yeah, I guess that's what made me so interested in it.
That's really
I guess
interesting.
be nerdy, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Thanks. And just one last question before we finish off. Kelly is wondering if you think you'll write a novel set in Singapore.
Right, actually, the third novel have a section set in
It does,
Singapore, and it's a character set in character who is a Singaporean, but it's, I wouldn't say it's set in Singapore because it's just a few chapters. But I do write I do read the Singapore chapters there, and yeah, I guess one of the thing is that people are really expecting that the novel that I write is going to be set in Japan, because it's like what I've been writing. But at the same time, sometimes I also feel like I want to add in a little bit of other stuff, like my heritage. I mean, like I'm living in Singapore, and also there's some parts that I talk about, like places like Indonesia a little bit. Like the characters talk about went to Bali and this kind of thing. I mean, this might not happen because it's still in editing process. My editor might still cut it. But sometimes I talk about this thing, and about basically actually my novel is my favorite thing. So there you'll see a lot of foods that I love, and season that I love, this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. It's been great chatting to you.
Having me.
Thank you. And hopefully we can talk to you again when you have a new book out. I'd love to keep in touch. Yeah. Thank you. And thanks everyone for the questions.
So
Bye.
Bye.